Art Attack is sponsored by Pridstick.
This is an Art Attack. This is an Art Attack. This is Art Attack. Ah, hello there. Oh, are you like me? You can never find a place to put down a wet paintbrush when you're painting. Ah, there it is. What you need is a wide-mouthed frog brush holder. Come and have a look at this. To make your froggy brush holder, you need some of this stuff. This is self-hardening clay, and you can get it from toy and craft shops. And it's brilliant, because it's modelling clay that hardens by itself. You don't need to bake it. And with one bag, you can make loads of stuff. So just tear off a handful and roll it into a nice, soft, smooth ball. This is already soft in the studio lights. And then just place the ball down like that. And then take your paintbrush and just very carefully push your paintbrush down into the front of that ball to create the frog's mouth. And you need to push it far enough down so that the clay holds the brush and it doesn't fall out. Then just roll it about a bit just to open up the mouth, and then take it out and take another piece of clay and roll that into a smaller ball this time. Place that down and then just flatten it into a circular disc like that. Then take a ruler and just chop the top third of that disc, just roughly the top third, doesn't need to be accurate, and then turn your ruler around and chop it in half the other way, so that you now have two big back feet for your frog and two smaller front feet. Then, to create the sort of frog's webbed feet effect, just make small indentations into the clay with the side of your brush on its edge like this. And then just very carefully lift the ball up, turn it over with the mouth at the front, and just dab on some water onto the underside, and this will act as a sort of glue on the clay so that you can then stick on those feet, and put the two big back feet on the back sticking out to the side, and the two smaller front feet can go on just underneath the mouth. And you need to be very careful with this. You can take some time doing it. I'm just doing it quickly to show you here. And just put that last one in there like that, and then very carefully turn it back over and put it to one side. Then take another piece of clay and roll it into a sausage that's a bit longer than one of your fingers, and just very loosely bend that over in half, and then just slip this in the gap between one of those big back feet and the body. Just poke it in with your finger or the brush. Again, you can take some time doing this. I'm just doing it really quickly to show you, and put plenty of water in to glue it in, and then do the same on the other side, another sausage of clay, and just fold that over and squeeze that in between the other back foot and the body, and there you have two big back legs on your clay frog, just like a real frog. And then just roll two smaller balls of clay and a dab of water on the top, and you have two great big froggy eyes. And it's great that this water just acts as a glue. And then put the whole thing to one side to dry, and it may dry overnight, it may take a little bit longer than that, but when it's dry, look at that, the self-hardening modelling clay has self-hardened, and it's actually gone rock solid. Look at that. And then paint it, and you can paint it using poster paint or acrylic paint, and it's a good idea to start with to paint it a nice froggy green. I'll just slop that on there just to show you, and then you can paint on some detail when the whole thing is green. And there's mine. Look at that. What I've done here is I've painted some spots on the front and the back. I've given some nice wide eyes. I've even painted his mouth, his wide mouth red, and I've picked out all that detail in felt tip pen. And there he is, and you can use him to stand your wet paintbrush when you're painting, Or you could even put a pen in it when you're writing to stop your pen from rolling around. And you could even do them in a different colour. What about this one? There's a red one there with sort of blue spots. And you could use different types of modelling clay. I like the self-hardening, but this is the stuff that you bake. Be careful with that when you're using it though. And this is just the ordinary soft modelling clay that you can get. And how about your own favourite dough recipe? There's loads of those in books. And you could even invent your own little creature. That's a bumblebee. But again, you must do a nice wide mouth. Try it yourself, a wide mouth frog brush or pen holder.
Hello, it's the head here. Oh, there's such a dinky little idea. And to make one, all you need to do is roll a handful of your chosen clay into a bowl. Press a paintbrush or pen in to make a mouth. Press a smaller ball of clay into a flat disc and use it to make 4 webbed feet. Add some legs, make 2 balls for eyes, let it all set and paint it. And you'll have your very own friendly froggy pen or paintbrush holder. Arr, arr.
You know, sometimes when I'm trying to think of ideas for big art attacks, I just fancy doing something really arty. somewhere before?
Oh, that was very artistic. I've always wondered what he kept in his pencil case. Hey, do you want to see the picture I laid out using what's in my pencil case? Not bad, is it? See what I can do when I try. My mum will like that, she will.
Here's one for you. Have you ever seen this stuff? Embossed lettering. It's lettering that has been specially printed to stick out from the paper. Now, it looks very professional, but it's also very expensive. So why not make your own? All you need is a cheap piece of coloured paper and 2 wax crayons. Now, you can use any colour paper you like apart from white. I've gone for some orange sugar paper, and you need 2 wax crayons, one that's a lighter colour than your paper, so that's yellow wax crayon in this case, and one that's a darker colour than your paper, and I've gone for a brown wax crayon. Now, to do your lettering, you have to decide what it is you want to write first. Now, it could be your name, or you could be making a poster, and the idea is to do thick, chunky lettering. But it's also a good idea to do it very lightly in pencil first, and that's what I've done here. You may just be able to make out the word art there, and I've done this very faintly. Now, to make it embossed and look as if it's sticking out from the paper, just take your light crayon, in this case it's a yellow wax crayon, and just pick out the left-hand lines on each part of each letter. So there's a left-hand line on that part of the letter, and you also need to pick out the left-hand lines and the top lines of each part of the letter. So there's a top line up there like that, and there's a top line on that bar that goes across the A. And then if we go over to the R here, there's a left-hand line that goes down that part of the R, and again there's a left-hand line there in this part, and it's just a case of trying to think, if the light was coming from the left of your picture, which edges would it be shining on if the letters were raised? And let's just go over to the T, and there's a left-hand line there, and then a top line there and there. Now, if the light was over to the left and shining on the top, then the right-hand edges and the bottom edges would be in shadow, and that's what we're going to do now. Take your dark wax crayon and just pick out the right-hand edges of each part of those letters. Look, that stick there on the A, there's a right-hand edge, and on this stick here, there's a right-hand edge there, and a right-hand edge there, and there's a bottom edge, because that would be in shadow, and another bottom edge there. And look at that, that's starting to look embossed. I'll do the same on the other letters. Go along the bottom edges and the right-hand edges of each part of the letter, and there's a bottom edge in there, and that top edge on the R comes round. You've got to watch it on the curved letters, comes round to the right hand and becomes a bottom edge. See that under there, like that, and you've got a right-hand edge there. And just finish off the T, a bottom edge, a bottom edge, a right-hand edge, and a bottom edge, just to finish it off. And there it is, embossed lettering that tricks your eyes into believing that it's raised from the paper. And you know, you can use homemade embossed lettering on lots of different things. How about on your posters for a start? That looks really good, doesn't it? And you could always decorate your exercise books or your drawing books with it. That looks very professional and very expensive. And you know, the great thing about this technique is your lettering doesn't have to be perfect to look great when it's embossed. Try it yourself. Homemade embossed lettering.
Oh, that's really effective. Just take some coloured paper and sketch out some chunky letters. Then use a lighter wax crayon to do all the left hand and top lines on each part of your letters, and use a darker crayon to do the right hand and bottom lines on each part of the letters. Extremely easy embossing.
Hello, my name is Charlie, and I looked at the light, shape and colour of an eye. Then I drew a giant one so it stares out at you. Hi, my name's Nicola, and I had an art attack by drawing a larger-than-life eye.
I'm Amika. I looked at the different colours in my classmate's eye and studied where the light hit the pupil. Then I drew one.
Hi, I'm Vicky.
And I'm Louise.
And we observed each other's eyes and drew a huge one. We then shaded it
With all the colours we had seen. Then we covered it in PVA glue to give it a more shiny effect.
What a brilliant art attack. Big eyes. Here's a bit of fun. Try making an eye. Blow up a round balloon so that it's just a little bit smaller than your head. And then take some PVA glue and mix it in equal parts with water and just slop it onto your balloon and paste on some strips of newspaper. And the idea is to cover the balloon in 3 layers of newspaper and glue papier-mâché. It won't take you long to do that. Just slop on big strips of newspaper, and when it's done, leave it to dry, and when it's dry, it'll look something like that. And look at that, the 3 layers of PVA and newspaper have gone rock solid, and you notice I haven't got all the way to the end there. That's so I can get my scissors in to burst it. Oh, there it goes inside, and I can now get the scissors in and cut the papier-mâché balloon lengthways from the top to the bottom. And when you've done that, you've got 2 halves. Look a bit like masks, don't they? Then paint those 2 halves. Paint one white and one to match your skin. Now, this white one is actually going to be your eyeball. And the thing to do on the eyeball is to just very carefully draw an outer circle like this, and that's for the iris of your eye, and then do an inner circle for the pupil. And then you can paint it any colour you want. You can use poster paint or acrylic paint for this. I'm going to use some poster paint. And again, you can do it any eye colour, blue, brown, grey or green. And what I'm going to do here is I've got some blue. I'm going to do a blue eye, and it's just a case of flicking in across the pupil like this. And it doesn't matter if you go over that pupil, because we're going to paint that black in a minute, but whatever you do, don't go over that outer line. And when you've done the whole of the iris, just dip your brush into some black paint and just dab it around the outside edge of your iris, because if you look closely at your iris in the mirror, it tends to be a little bit darker around the edges of those coloured streaky bits. And when you've gone around the outside edge of the iris, just colour the pupil, the middle bit, in black. And it's a good idea to just leave a white circle as a sort of highlight. And when you've painted it, just leave it to one side to dry, and then take the other half, the half that you painted the colour of your skin, and cut that into 3 equal bits. See that? 3 equal bits, and then throw one of those bits away. You won't need it. Take those other 2 bits, they'll be the eyelids, and then take your eyeball and glue the top edge of your eyeball and the bottom edge of your eyeball. Just a little strip of glue along both, and press those eyelids into place like that. And then leave the whole thing to one side to dry. And when it's dry, look at that. The eyelids actually stick out slightly from the eyeball, so it looks 3D. And I've even put on some eyelashes, just painted those on. And you know what? The weird thing about these big eyes is that wherever you put them, if you put them on a desktop or even if you hang them up, the eye just seems to follow you wherever you go. Try it yourself, a big eye. And I'll see you next time. Ta-ra!
Art Attack is sponsored by Pridstick. Whoops.
This is an art attack. This is an art attack. This is
Art Attack. Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to Art Attack, the big art show that gives your eyeballs a shock. How are you? I am okay. And you? I am okay too. ILCU 200. You ever done that? Look at car number plates and sometimes they spell out silly words, or if you say it quickly, part of a sentence, like ILCU 200. I'll see you tomorrow. Get it? Well, customised number plates like this can cost thousands of pounds, so why not make your own? All you need is a piece of card big enough to draw a rectangle 30 centimetres by about 10 centimetres, the size of a number plate. And then you just draw your letters inside. You can draw parts of a silly word, or you can even include your name, if you can work that out. And what I'm going to do here is just put in the screw for the number plate there, on the other side. All adds to the authenticity. And there it is, it says I-M-N-E-L. And if you say it fast, I am a Neil. In other words, I am Neil. When you've got it to that stage, you can cover it with this sticky back plastic. You know, the stuff that gets everywhere and you get in a terrible mess with it? Well, I'm not going to do it now. I've already done it. There it is. It gives it this brilliant glossy finish. Then you need some of this wood adhesive. Now you can get this from do-it-yourself stores or good art and craft shops, and it's just a case of squeezing it onto the pencil lines on your designed number plate. Doesn't matter if it goes a little bit wobbly. Don't forget the screw, because what happens is if you leave it to dry overnight, the wood glue tends to spread out to just about the right size for number plate letters. There it is. I'll just do that bit to show you there. And if you leave it to dry overnight, next day it'll look something like this. And you see you've got this brilliant raised surface and all the wood glue has gone very hard. Then take a permanent marker and just colour in black all over. It doesn't matter if you go over this edge at all. We'll keep it off the rest of the number plate. Now the reason I say a permanent marker is because it covers much better than an ordinary water-based marker. And sometimes you might have to go over it twice there. And of course, permanent marker doesn't rub out and it dries with a shiny finish. Don't forget the screw. And you keep going over all the letters of your number plate. Let's finish it there. When you've finished, you can cut it out and you have something that looks like that. There it is, your own customised number plate. I-M-N-E-L. I'm a Neil. And what do you do with it when you finish with it? Come and have a look at this. You stick it on the front of your bike. But do yourself a favour, if it starts to rain, don't forget to take it in. And what if you haven't got a bike? You could always put it on the front of your bedroom door. Mess around with all the letters. There's loads of different names you can try. I am Ellen. I am Stevie. I am Nigel. You are a BB.
I had such fun doing that. I got my yellow card, stuck on sticky backed plastic, squeezed out the wood glue and then coloured over the top of it. It's great. Look, I am dead. clever. I had my hair cut the other week, collected up all the bits and pieces and made it into a picture. What is it? It's a sculpture of a pile of stone chippings.
Drawn a picture that you really like and tried to copy it and can't quite get it right. Make some copy paper. Have a look at this. Ordinary wax crayon, just brushed thinly on there. To a piece of scrap paper, turn it over, get a pen or a sharp pencil, draw on the other side, and there the wax crayon is printed through onto the other side. Now you can use this technique to make copy paper. So okay, here's the paper I want to draw onto. I'm just lining it up carefully. Here is my copy paper. Now what I've done here is just charge the back of a sheet of paper with the wax crayon. Just line that up. And here is the picture that I want to copy. So again, lining them up carefully, and it's just a case of pressing with your pen. Now I find this technique very handy for copying pictures to my good drawing books. It is going around all the lines there, pressing really firmly. Side, following it all the way around. Just finish it off with the tail. There it is. There you have it. Remove the copy paper, and underneath, I suppose you could call it a copycat. You can also turn a magazine photograph into copy paper. Here's the paper I'm going to copy onto. Here's the magazine photograph that I want to copy, and on the back I've just covered it in wax crayon. So again, place that on the top. And just lining it up, you can see you've got to get one on top of the other, and press. You can do a drawing, or a copy drawing, of your favourite sports personality, or pop star, and draw it in to your own drawing book. I suppose you could colour it in afterwards. And it's all the way around, just keeping to the outside lines. I'm just going to go around the outline there. Of course, mustn't forget the ball. Lift up the photo, and underneath you have your copy picture. And of course you could do a multicoloured copy picture. Here's the paper I want to copy onto. Again, just lining it up very carefully. Here's my multicoloured copy paper, just loads of wax crayon stripes. Lay it onto my paper. Let's see what this does. I know. Why not, eh? Put the old Art Attack splodge up there, and now it's an Art Attack multicoloured splodge. Look at that. Try it yourself. Make your own copy paper.
That's a neat tip. Copying paper using only wax crayons. I've done one of those. A fantastic portrait of John Major. Make sure you scribble on the back of the picture though.
My name's Wesley and this is my picture. I used pastels and then I smudged it. I used a few nocturnal animals and it is the wood in the mist.
My name's Anita and this is a picture of sunrise. I used yellow, pink and brown and green. My name is Gemma Edwards and this is a picture of a girl looking out of the window in the afternoon. I done it with chalk and I smudged it.
Good Art Attack from Mondine's school. I think smudging is a brilliant effect. Watch this. Ordinary stick of chalk, black sheet of paper. Just make some strategic lines on it. And this is just ordinary school chalk. Getting a packet. I'm just making some lines here, pressing very hard to get as much chalk onto the paper as I can. A couple of circles here. Again, pressing hard. Get loads of chalk dust on. And I think I need just a couple of dots here. And then it should be ready. Okay, there it is. Just blow off the excess dust. And then smudge. Smudge in this direction to start with. Bring it down, then up to meet it the other way. All the time just smudging with the end of my finger. It's as simple as that. In the other direction, there. In both directions if you like. A bit down here. Just slowly building up the picture just by smudging. Look at that. Go in every direction here, I think. That's it. Smudge it right out. Not only is this very effective, it's also, as you can see, great fun to do. And you can always charge your picture up again. There it is. And a little bit of red down there, just to finish the effect. A bit there, a bit there. One blow. And there it is, lorry in the rain. And where's the rain? Well, of course, it's on the road. Another good way to smudge is to cut out a shape from a sheet of cardboard, any shape you like, any size you like, and smudge off the edge. Try it yourself. A bit of chalk, a bit of paper, and give yourself a smudge attack. I'll see you next time. Ta-ra!
This is an art attack. This is an art attack. This is Art Attack.
Hey, listen, do you fancy a quick game of noughts and crosses? Well, forget the boring old pencil and scrap of paper. What you need is the 3D deluxe version. And here it is. Watch this. 3 in a row, and I win. Come and have a look at this. Now, to make 3D noughts and crosses, you need a small-sized newspaper. And we're going to start by making the playing grid. That's the lines that you play on. And you need to take one sheet of your newspaper and close it, and then roll it up from the bottom to the top in a nice, tight, neat roll like that. So you've got a paper tube. And then a little bit of tape, just to tape that into position so it doesn't all fall apart. And the idea is to make 4 of these paper tubes all together, and then just place them 2 next to each other like that, 2 on the top, to create the playing grid. And when you're happy with the position, tape them down, use lots of tape and make them nice and secure so that you have something that looks like this. Now, to make the noughts and crosses themselves, take another folded sheet of newspaper and again roll it neatly from the bottom to the top, only this time when you've got your paper tube, instead of taping it, just twist it tightly like that so that you get a nice tight twist of newspaper. And now you need to make 10 of these all together. Now for the crosses, take one of these twisted pieces of newspaper and just measure it up with the middle square on your playing grid and just trim it so that you have a little bit that fits inside that square, and then another piece across like that that also fits inside that square, and then just put the two of them together and tape them into a cross. And there it is. You need to make 5 crosses all together. For the noughts, again, take another twisted piece of newspaper and again measure that on the inside square of your playing grid so that it fits. That's about it. And then again put a piece of tape round when it's the right size. The reason I'm measuring it against the grid, of course, is so it'll fit inside the grid, and then you can trim off the excess there. Perfect fit. And again you need to make 5 noughts, so that's 5 noughts and 5 crosses all together. So that's the basic shapes. Now to make them really strong and solid, you need to papier-mâché them. Let me just bring in my old friend here, PVA glue, the white school glue in the squidgy bottles. Mix it 2 parts glue, 1 part water, and then I'm going to start with the playing grid. It's just a case of spreading the glue onto your pieces, playing grid here, and then wrapping some kitchen roll or tissue paper or even loo roll around the bars of your playing grid like that, and just paste them on like that around the back, pushing it into all those nooks and crannies. And the idea is to cover the whole of your playing grid in 2 layers of PVA glue and tissue paper or kitchen roll, and the same with your noughts and crosses. And when you've done the whole lot in 2 layers, put them to one side to dry overnight, and when they've dried, look at this, they've gone rock hard and they're ready to paint. And paint it using poster paint or acrylic paint, but whatever you do, make sure you paint it in outrageous colours. Look at that, I'm just slopping on this fluorescent pink here onto the playing grid, and do your noughts and crosses in exactly the same way. And see what I've done with mine. When mine was dry, I put on some extra little polka dots. Look at that, that looks really crazy, and you can go really berserk with the noughts and the crosses. And there it is, sort of ready to play really. And the great thing is you can do any design you like. What about something like this, black and white polka dots? There it is, and you can leave it lying around your house because it looks great just as a piece of modern art. And of course, if it's there, it's always there when you fancy a quick game. Try it yourself. 3D noughts and crosses.
Hello, it's me, the head. Hey, they are a brilliant idea. And if you want to make a set, roll up and tape 4 sheets of newspaper. Arrange them to make your playing grid and tape securely. Bend twisted pieces of newspaper into circles to make 5 noughts. For the crosses, cut 2 bits and tape them into an X shape. Mix white school glue with a bit of water and use it to paste strips of tissue around everything. When they're dry, paint all your pieces. And you'll have your very own deliciously delightful deluxe set of 3-dimensional noughts and crosses.
Do you know what I love? I love it when you get to see behind the scenes on film and TV sets, especially spooky ones. In fact, I got to see behind the scene on a spooky film set the other day, and you know, things aren't quite what they seem. What's this? Gone to lunch. Yeah.
This gives me an idea for a big art attack.
Was franktastic. Now, don't you go messing about with any bits of scientific equipment, will you? It can be very dangerous.
Have you got a set of these watercolour paints? But does your water always end up looking like this? And your pictures end up looking like this, a complete splodgy mess. Well, believe it or not, watercolours are one of the hardest art materials to use. Many times I've ended up with a complete mess like this because it's all run out of control. Well, here's some tips on how to get good results from your watercolour paints. First of all, draw a sketch on nice thick drawing paper. Watercolours work best on thicker paper. And when you do your sketch, just do the outlines and the shapes. You don't need to put in any detail. And when it comes to mixing your paint, just mix it with water in the lid tray of your paint box. And if you haven't got one of those, then you can always use empty yogurt cartons that you've washed out. Now, the technique to watercolour painting is just simply to brush on the paint onto the paper and keep that wash going as quickly as you possibly can. Just keep it going down your paper like this, and try not to go back on yourself. Even if you miss a bit, just keep going and you get a nice smooth wash. And you don't have to colour it in absolutely perfectly. Just control that wash all the way down to the bottom, and then stop. Stop and allow it to dry. And you know, that is the secret to good watercolour paintings. Paint each section, then stop and allow it to dry before you move on to the next bit. That way, the paint won't all run into each other and go out of control. So I'm going to put this to one side, and that's exactly what I did with this picture. I did each section, I allowed it to dry before I moved on to the next section. And look at it, it's crisp, clear, and there are no runs because I controlled the paint. So when your background is dry, then you can add on a layer of shading. And to do this, you just mix your paint slightly thicker and add in touches of black. And then just paint it on to the dried background, and look at that, no runs at all. Just another little bit there, like that. Just to finish off some windows. And here's another good tip. It's pointless doing a watercolour painting with dirty water because you'll get all your paint a dirty grey. So use one lot of water to wash your brush with and another lot of water to paint with. And just make sure your background layers are really dry, and then you can add in some finer detail. And I'm just blotting on some shadow in the bushes here. Not too much detail, just some extra shadow there. And then just real fine detail with a thinner brush. There, and there, and there. And there you have a perfectly clear and crisp picture with no runs. Of course, if you do want your paint to run, to create an effect like reflections in water, then get loads of water onto your brush. And actually, this is where dirty water comes in handy, because you just make your paper really wet with that dirty water. See that? Just a bit more in there. Get a bit of the sky reflection in as well. Make my paper really wet. And then just start to put in some darker reflections. So there we go, let's try those trees. Yes, look at that. The paint's really out of control, running everywhere. Different colour. And there it is. Try it yourself, a watercolour painting, but don't forget, let all the bits dry before you move on to the next bit and keep the paint in control.
Well, I've really learnt something there. I just need to paint each part of my picture, letting each bit dry before I paint the next bit. I'll try that next time. Because it's bound to be better than this. Oh!
Hi, I'm Emma and this is my swan picture. I made this one out of black paper and using squares, triangles and rectangles. This is a technique called tangram. I placed the swan on a pink marble background to make it show up brightly. Hello, my name is Philip and I have done this picture on the computer. I chose navy blue as a background. I then drew some little yellow chips to go on top. I then repeated the pattern across the page.
Hi, I'm Rebecca and I painted a simple pattern. I did black lines out from the middle of the picture, and to make it eye-catching I painted lots of squiggles, star shapes and spots.
Yeah, great art attacks. And do you know what? That pattern has given me an idea. Here's a challenge for you. See if you can create a never-ending line pattern using a line that never ends. Try this. Take a piece of paper and just draw a line across the middle of it, and then suddenly change direction, and then suddenly change direction again and go back on yourself. Change direction again, go back on yourself, and then change direction again and go up there. And the idea is to just build up a pattern using a line that never ends. And you can draw short lines like that, or longer lines. You can even draw like square boxes like this, but just keep it going and see if you can keep the line as close to itself without actually touching. In fact, there are rules to this game. You mustn't let the line touch itself. You mustn't get trapped inside your own pattern. Ooh, watch out, there we go. And you mustn't stop. In fact, the only reason to stop is to change colour. And you just pick up again where you left off with that never-ending line. And again, just keep the line as close to itself as you dare to go. Keep changing direction. Go back on yourself. You could even wrap the whole thing around itself like that. And then stop and change colour. And just keep going. See if you can fill in the whole of that piece of paper with a never-ending line. And gradually, you'll build up this crazy never-ending line pattern. Good effect, isn't it? Now you can do a straight line never-ending line pattern like this one, or you could try a curved line never-ending line pattern, but the rules are the same. You just, this time, draw a curved line and then suddenly change direction and go back on yourself, change direction again, go back on yourself. But just this time you're building up your pattern out of curved lines, big curves, small curves like that. But the idea is to keep that line as close to itself as possible. In fact, you could even challenge a friend to see who can keep theirs going the longest. But again, you mustn't let the line touch. You mustn't get trapped inside your own pattern, and you mustn't stop, because if you do stop, you've lost. Not to worry, pick up a different colour and just continue your never-ending line pattern. Completely cover the page, and there you have a curved never-ending line pattern. Great fun to do and so simple, and you can do them as big as you like or as small as you like, and you can even use them to decorate things with. There's an exercise book and there's a greetings card. Try it yourself. Never-ending line patterns. See how long you can keep yours going for. And I'll see you next time. Ta-ra!